If you like using debit over credit, don't you think it's time to also get rewarded? Well, now you can with Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases. Plus, there are no fees, period. We're talking date nights, thrifting the latest trends, nights out with your friends, and it's now earning you cash back with Discover Cashback Debit. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
You better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, ah, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser, and joining us today is Emily Gonzalez from Too Scary Didn't Watch. Yay!
That was lovely. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for jumping on. Mikey is not able to make it today. He's on vacation, so we figured we would...
Congratulations, Mikey.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So he's sunning on the beach right now, I think in Florida or Alabama or somewhere on the beach. Somewhere on
I
the
don't
Gulf.
know. I was asking questions. He was like, it's this beach. I was like, you say that like I should know.
It's Paradito Key. I remember. He told me.
Okay, cool.
Look at me being a good friend. Anyway, so Emily, thank you so much. I literally DM'd Emily at like, I don't know, 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And I was like, hey, what are you doing in 18 hours? Can you help? Can you record? And she was like,
Yes,
yeah,
thank
that's
you.
great.
I'm getting on a podcast. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So today I made you guys watch A Knight's Tale. So this can't have been the first time any of us had seen this movie, right? Like, we've all seen this before, right?
It was my first time.
Oh my God, Emily, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. It was my first time. I made my boyfriend watch it with me. It was both of our first times. To the point where I was like, how did we escape that? Like,
Really?
Like
No.
10 Things I Hate About You, another Heath Ledger rom-com.
Of course.
2 years prior, one of my most seen movies of all time.
Yeah.
I was watching rom-coms in this time. I was watching Heath Ledger in this time. Somehow missed this movie.
That's nuts.
I can't believe it. I know. I'm so glad to have watched it. So thank you.
That makes me so happy
Yeah.
because I really have to know, like, what did you think, like, first impressions watching this movie?
Delightful. Just absolutely delightful.
Yeah.
It really is just immediately, it's fun. It's having a good time. It's so 2001, but in like in a lovely way,
Yeah.
you know, like they really were enjoying we'll all talk about like the style of this movie, the way they're like, we're going to do a nice tale, but we're also going to modernize it, but we're going to do a little bit of both. And
Yeah.
we're going to we're not going to point it out. We're just going to let it exist in this
Right.
sort of half and half world, which I thought was so fun. And they make that choice like all throughout in some of the costumes and the soundtrack. And it's just
yeah.
like, it's really just, it's not, I would say it's not a perfect movie. I had some thoughts.
Absolutely
but,
not.
But it's just so fun. It's just so fun. And like, Heath, I mean,
I know. He's so fucking dreamy.
It does make you miss him a lot.
he's so dreamy. Nobody has a smile like that. He smiles and you just like
know.
melt. Also, he was 22 in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you like lose track of just how young he was.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really wild.
And he passed away like 7-8 years after this, right? Like,
2008.
okay, so
Yeah.
7 years after this. Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, he was 29.
So
it's
young.
devastating.
Yeah.
But he was just so young and such a little heartthrob, and it just is. Yeah, he's so watchable. He's just so watchable.
And he's also great in this. And
He's great in this.
I mean, I think his romantic counterpart is pretty terrible.
She's the worst.
I
She's
hate
the
her
least
so
favorite part of the
much.
film in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's her and also that character. I have so many questions about
Oh, yeah.
our choice with her.
Why is her hair the same hair from Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century?
Very Xenon. It's extremely
No,
Xenon.
it is, yeah.
her and her handmaiden were just like going wild with the hair chalk. It's just like purple, pink, everything.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually worse than I remembered it, which is crazy.
There's one scene where she has 2 streaks on her face that are in different
Yes.
colors. I was like, are you pitching a baseball game? Like, what are you doing? Why do you have those lines on your eyes?
No, she's the 4th member of TLC. I don't know if you know, but like that's what's happening in this movie.
I forget her name. What is it?
Shannyn Sossamon.
Shannyn Sossamon.
Shannyn
That's right.
Sossamon, yeah.
I only remember because she's one of my least favorite actresses of all time. And every time she's in something, I'm like, nope.
She's really not very good. She is beautiful, and I feel like in 2001, that is pretty much all we cared about
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
a society. Not that we care about a whole lot more
She
now,
is
but we're at least
gorgeous.
pretending. She's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
she's beautiful.
But also that character, I'm just like,
Yeah, it's a nothing character.
I can't tell if you're supposed to think she is a good romantic choice for him or the villain. There's so many moments where I'm like, wait, do we want him to end up with her? I don't actually know.
I don't know. And to be honest, watching this as an adult, I did not understand their fights. I was like, what?
There's a moment where, they were fighting, and I turned away from her. I was like, did we miss something? Like, why are they yelling all of a sudden?
Why, what happened? I don't know. Like, this is not just bad communication. This is no communication.
No, it's terrible.
Zero.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't find her in the least attractive at all. I think he should have ended up with the blacksmith character. I thought she was way
going
cuter.
to.
And when they had like that dance, when they were dancing and whatever, they had a little bit of chemistry, more than him and Shannyn Sossamon.
They played that like I thought in that moment, I was like, oh, this is going to be the thing. It's actually going to be her. And like, she knows who he really is. And they both have humble bit. But no. It's the princess.
Can I pitch an alternate ending?
Yes, please.
Okay. He finds out that Jocelyn, noble lady, is vapid and shallow, and then ends up with a blacksmith. Like, that's what I want.
That's exactly what I wanted too.
It's what I thought was going to happen.
Then they turn it around and she's like, I don't care that you're poor. And I was like, false.
So when was the first time you saw this movie, Paige?
Oh, God, I don't even remember. I might have seen this in theaters. I honestly don't remember, but
I think I did.
I think I might have. I do know that my sister and I watched this movie religiously for years. Like, this was a family favorite. We watched it all the time. My mom, an AP Brit Lit teacher, hates this movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
She doesn't like a character who's just Chaucer for no reason?
For no reason.
She knows her Chaucer back to front, cover to cover. And so she can like kind of appreciate some of it, but she doesn't like the modernizations of the movie. Yeah, so it's like, sure, I like it.
I like it too, and I love Paul Bettany. So like,
so much fun.
Also, this was something I was like, oh man, Paul Bettany has been at it forever. He looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
A full 20 years later.
he does.
Yeah.
And I've seen him naked recently. Looks exactly the same.
Wow, that little butt, little
Nice.
short butt crack.
He didn't realize I saw it, but yeah.
Yeah.
The
Short
cops
crack.
still haven't
It's
found
alarming.
Short crack Bettany at it again.
That's what we call him. But dude, Rufus Sewell,
He's gorgeous in this movie. I know he's the villain, but those green eyes, I was
gorgeous.
like,
Ah.
he
beautiful.
fell into that like handsome bad guy. Like,
Yeah, he did.
He plays a villain like no other.
Oh,
He does
he's
it
so
that
good.
smarmy. It's
yeah,
perfect.
he's so good. But like Alan Tudyk's in this, who's amazing. King Baratheon from Game of Thrones is in this, and he's great in this.
Robert Baratheon,
Yeah,
yes.
I love it. There's so many famous people in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, why is this guy? That's what he is. Wow. Damn. Yeah. What a cast.
What
a
a
cast.
cast, right? I have to know how much like they paid to use Nike's logo on his armor.
Oh,
I had totally forgotten about that and
address
wrote it down.
They just are like, that's my blacks. I was like, why is it Nike? Why?
Nike swooshes.
Oh, I wonder if they got away with it because it's 2 Nike swooshes, not just the one. And I wonder
I think that might be how they get away with it, to
that's
be
wild.
honest with you. But it's clearly a Nike swoosh.
No,
Like, it's
absolutely.
like
It is.
100% a Nike swoosh. Yeah.
you couldn't even argue that it's something else. Oh man.
I mean, that symbol is so ubiquitous in like pop culture that like it's unmistakable.
Yeah.
it's doubled and it's upside down, but it still doesn't
But
matter
it's
because you're just like
definitely
Nike swoosh. Yeah.
Nike swoosh.
I do love that the blacksmith stole our hearts and invented branding, and that's like all I needed from her. And she still didn't end up with
she's
Heath
just, like,
Ledger.
handing him the armor, like, just do it. And you're just like,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
I like that you made her Scottish. I like that.
Oh yeah, because I'm not great at accents
I'm
and never
terrible at
claimed to
accents,
be.
yeah.
There's some great accents in this movie, though, for sure.
There are.
I do sort of feel like they're letting everyone do their own accent, though. It's not like
I had
trying.
moments where I was like,
Yeah.
is Heath being British or is this just how he talks. I was like, it's a little more British. He skews a little more British than he maybe regularly is.
Well,
but.
and I mean, none of it's accurate to the period as far as what people would sound like. So who the fuck cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Like in college, I had to learn to read Middle English because I took a whole class on Chaucer, and this movie would not be fun to watch in Middle English. You'd be like, "Is this half German?" And you're like, "Kinda, yeah."
Yeah, so might as well be. Yeah.
This movie it's so fun. It's astonishingly long. I'll say my biggest thought with this movie is I wish it tried to do a little less.
Yeah, honestly, it could be 20 minutes shorter.
Trying to do a little too much. There's some things where it's like, I think that choice complicates things, and I don't think we need it.
Yeah.
Because the concept is so fun. It's so simple. It's like everyone is so charismatic that for me, where it goes a little off the rails is like sort of that like, oh wait, why are they fighting right now? Okay, wait, he's at war, but then he's back.
Yeah,
okay.
then he's not.
It's things that was like, just cut that out. Let's just cut that out.
Yeah, I'm on kind of a weird, crunchy schedule today. And so I was like, I've seen this movie a million times, and I'm going to just fast forward through montages because I know what happens.
Yeah.
And then I was shocked by how many montages there were. And I was like, is this movie 40% montages? And I'm here to tell you,
it is.
It fucking is.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised. Like that Third Eye Blind song that's in every montage from this time was not used in this movie.
That's the only one because it's mostly like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, rock.
And honestly, I did have the soundtrack to this movie, and it fucking slaps.
Yeah.
It slaps.
Yeah, it's good.
I do sort of wish they had done like is it Westworld that like turns like pop music into like orchestral pieces?
The original Westworld or the new Westworld?
I have not seen the 70s Westworld because I'm not going to put myself through that Michael Crichton madness.
It's amazingly
bad. I mean, the
bad.
most recent stuff, yeah.
Bridgerton also does that.
Yes,
yeah, Bridgerton
does
it so much. If you want like a violin version of Taylor Swift, Bridgerton has you handled.
Bridgerton has it.
I do want that. Do they sell soundtrack? Get Bridgerton season 1 on soundtrack.
Come on, they must.
There's also the unauthorized Bridgerton musical. I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm sorry, there's a what?
I am not familiar.
Okay, I'm here. I mean, I know this doesn't relate to this movie at all, but there's a woman on TikTok who is a songwriter and actually a very good songwriter and good singer. And she has like pop songs. And she wrote, just for like a joke on TikTok, a Bridgerton musical. And then she ends up partnering with like another songwriter, and they put it out and performed it and won a Grammy for it this year.
Yeah, it's called the unofficial Bridgerton musical.
Yes,
an album by Abigail Barlow. I just looked it up.
Yeah, it's Barlow and Bear is their like name when they work together collectively.
Emily Bear and Abigail Barlow is who did it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, well, I know what I'm listening to the rest of this day.
Good for them.
It's not bad. It's one of she also helped write the Dolly Parton Taco Bell musical.
I'm sorry, what the fuck did you just say?
It came out 2 days ago, Todd, to celebrate the return of the Mexican pizza. You need to get on the talk and get into what Gen Z is into.
Dolly Parton Taco Bell musical?
You fucking heard me.
That
you heard the words that came out of my mouth.
I'm going to drive to Pigeon Forge.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's all right. It's okay. It's fine.
All right.
I will say I did cry a lot more in this movie than I ever remembered crying.
I fucking hate how much I cried during this movie. I have like weird dad issues because my dad passed away, and it's like this whole like thing, right?
Todd, are we both on our moon times?
Oh, you have no idea. Like
that's when I cried though, is all the dad stuff.
When Heath Ledger comes home and they have that scene with his dad, and his dad is fucking acting, man. Like he's feeling it. I'm like full on weeping. My girlfriend's like setting up this desk chair that we bought for her, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Anyway."
I can't change my stars. Yeah.
And then, like, it cuts from them both being, like, the best actors in this movie to Shannyn Sossamon, like, just, like,
Shannyn Sossamon?
Yeah, whatever her name. Who cares? Just, like, chewing scenery and not feeling anything when she's acting. And I'm like,
I love you, and I will run with you. Let's run. I can be poor. And it's like, bitch, no, you can't. You don't even understand what poor is like in this time.
You got no idea.
Yeah,
you got no in this time?
No.
Poor is basically dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's going to buy your metric fuck tons of hairspray to give you wild hairstyles when you're poor. You better get used to braids.
You think you can afford face paint when you're poor? I don't think so. Sossamon.
All this flowy, like, for some reason, avocado colored linen that you wear through this entire movie.
There's one hairstyle where she just looks like a peacock. Like it's like flat and like
big time,
pointy and wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
was into it.
exactly 2001.
So much.
It stepped off a runway and into this movie.
Well, I was here for it. Maybe we should go through this movie so we can talk about it scene by scene, though, Paige.
Yes, because honestly, limited time today before I melt in my Los Angeles apartment with no air
It
conditioning.
is deeply hot in Los Angeles today.
It is painfully hot. It's real bad.
It's 85 degrees here in Nashville. I don't know how hot it is in
fuck
LA.
you.
It's hot.
Actually,
it's hotter than that here, I believe.
It's 91 right now.
Oh, God.
Oh, I'm sorry, 93. It's 93. And it
Yeah,
was
it's bad.
hotter yesterday. Yesterday was like 96. It was bad.
All right.
So, all right, we open, before we even hit credits, we open on a title card that says, in medieval times, a sport arose, embraced by noble and peasant fans alike. Though only noble knights could compete, the sport was jousting. And we get just like a little clip of jousting, and then we get another title card that says, for one of these knights, an over-the-hill former champion, it was the end. But for his peasant squire William, it was merely the beginning. Right into the story.
Yeah.
No dilly-dallying. Sir Ector is dead.
I will say, yeah, they jump right in, and I love that. That's like great. They're just like, okay, here's the premise. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Here are the 5 lines you need to understand what's about to happen.
To understand the first shot of the movie, and we'll pick it up from there. And I love when you're not like I don't know, you're just not hit with like a 3-minute credit scene immediately. I love when a movie jumps in. I don't mind like a little bit of text that I have to read to set up what's going on, but just 3 minutes of text and I'm already bored in your movie. So I'm very grateful this movie just jumps right in.
It jumps right in. The knight that they work for is dead. He has to be ready to compete in 2 minutes or forfeit, which I don't think you could get in and out of armor in 2 minutes, but let's play pretend.
But I mean, in this world, they do, which means that they did not have time to wash the shit out of that armor. And that to me is funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And also, the more I thought about it, because so many times in this movie, and I think it's because the person writing it is writing it as a modern person. So many times in this movie, they're just like 2 minutes to this. And I'm just like, are the people just constantly turning hourglasses to wait for
Like
people?
counting the seconds. Yeah.
Like how frequent of a thing was that where they were like, you're on in 5? Like, I don't think that happens. I mean, it probably does. I
wonder
guess.
if it was like a standard thing people said. You got 3 minutes, but that just means like you have a short amount of time. You have until I run out of my patience.
Because it seems in this movie, they always have exactly enough time to do what they need to do. And it does seem to just be like 2 minutes or however long this takes.
You have the time you need.
Yeah.
Right.
And then let's go.
But hurry the fuck up, okay?
Hurry.
Yeah. You have until after the guitar solo in We Will Rock You, and then we're forfeiting if you're not here.
I mean, honestly, like that first song, because essentially what they do is they put his armor on William, and William's going to compete, even though he shouldn't be because he's not a knight.
Right.
But as he's like riding into the arena, or the lists, as they call it.
Ooh, someone's been to a Ren Fair.
What's up? Yeah, I've seen live jousting. Yes, it's not as interesting as
It's
it is
not.
in this movie.
It's not as interesting as they make it seem. I've been to every Ren Fair I've had the chance to go to.
Now, medieval times, different story.
Oh, medieval times is a fun time. I'll go to medieval times anytime anyone wants.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So as he rides into the arena, we are met with We Will Rock You. And that immediately tells you what kind of movie this is, where you're just like, oh, fuck history. We're just here for a good time.
Yeah.
And We Will Rock You, like the crowd is singing it and clapping along. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's a part of the movie. It's not just the soundtrack to it. We're doing it.
Like it's a 1980s fucking sea
They all
shanty that
know it.
everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
like
fun.
like it's a modern day arena. And I have some notes on fun facts about why they did that, because it
Ooh,
was
can't
actually
wait.
a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
But another thing to note, and if you kind of look at it like throughout the movie, so the next time you watch it, keep your eyes open for it. Most of the extras don't speak English. And so they had to like teach them the song.
Really?
Oh, I love that.
Like they could clap, but they didn't know the words. And this movie has them like singing
Yeah,
along.
it does.
So there's a couple points at which something happens and the crowd doesn't react the way you would expect them to. And it's because they physically did not understand what was being said to them. And then they keep it in for comedic effect.
That's very funny.
Love
I mean,
that.
there is one time because this is, I don't know what city this is in, but it's not like Paris or whatever. So like it's like a small local town jousting session or whatever. But like the guy who was like overseeing it, like the lord of that area is sitting there and he is like saying the wrong words. They show him singing the wrong words. And I was like, oh, it makes sense that the posh lord dude would not know Queen. I thought that they did that as a choice, but he just did not speak English probably.
He's an extra. That's also why he doesn't speak to give them the gift after.
Yeah. Wild.
Like when they win, because he does not speak English.
That's awesome.
Literally, aside from your main cast, pretty much no one in this movie on screen speaks English.
That's awesome.
It's pretty great.
Very interesting.
I do love as they're like pulling into joust or whatever, they show like a close up of the trumpet players at the end of the song, and like it's this guitar solo. It's very clearly a guitar, but then it stops, and then the guy puts the trumpet down like he was playing it, and I'm like, you know what? Good on you, trumpet player. I love it.
that fits into the part of the reason why they chose the modern music. So we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Okay, cool.
And up until today, I had never known why they did. And after reading like the director's justification for doing it, I was like, okay, that actually makes some fucking sense. Like this was not without thought, I guess is what I would say. Anyway, so all he has to do is not fall off his horse and they win. So he jousts, he gets hit, but he doesn't fall off the horse, which means they won, which means they can eat, because we did find out that they hadn't eaten in like 3 days.
Yeah.
But he gets hit in the face, and his helmet is dented against his face, so he can't remove his helmet. Thank goodness.
Right.
Because he's not the guy, so they kind of pull one over on these people because he can't get his helmet off. So they give them a gold ostrich feather. That's something I didn't really notice watching it as a kid. And as an adult was just like, do they not have coins? Like, why are they giving them all this weird gold shit? Like, they've got the ostrich feather and then like
little figurines.
Yeah. A box.
I love the guy on the horse though, because they literally just like break it apart to pay people with it. And that to me was hilarious.
Knock pieces of gold off it.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So they get their money. It's enough for them to eat or go back to England, whatever they want to do. But Heath Ledger's character, William, is like, what if we did this full time, though?
Yeah.
Like, what if we actually made a go of it, tried to be famous knights? And they're like, but you're not a knight. And he's like, who's to say? And they're like, everyone.
It's all made up anyway. Let's just have fun.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
And they decide to do it. And so they kind of move on to the next, or they're about to move on to the next tournament, but they try to practice in the woods because he doesn't actually know how to do it. He's just been near a knight this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, he helped his former knight, whose name escapes me, but doesn't matter.
Sir Ector.
Yeah, Sir Ector. He would like be a practice dummy for him. So he knows how to ride a horse. He's actually a really good sword fighter in his own right, but like he doesn't know how to hold or aim a jousting lance. A lance is what you call it.
It's called lance. Hello.
A scene that was there just for the trailer. I guarantee you that was in the trailer.
Must have been.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but that was one that my sister and I used to yell at each other a lot. But so they train in the woods and then they kind of move on to the next tournament. And as they're on the road, that's where they encounter Geoffrey Chaucer, a.k.a. Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
And something, again, that I noticed this time and didn't think about as a kid, he's just like, have you read my book, The Book of the Duchess? And I'm like, they can't read.
No way can they read. Nuh-uh.
No way can they read. They're just like, huh? And he says, well, it's allegorical. Well, we won't hold that against you. That's for each man to decide for himself. But again, it's because they just physically can't read.
Yeah.
And there's many times throughout the movie when he's just like, saying things to people or trying to explain things to people who clearly can't read and are clearly fully illiterate. And he's just like, I don't get why you don't understand. And it's pretty funny.
One of the reasons I love Alan Tudyk so much and sort of everything he's in is because he's like always giving you 1,000%, whether he has a line in the scene or not. And there are so many scenes when Paul Bettany is talking way over his head and he just has the dumbest look on his face. Like, not like he's making a dumb face, but like, there's nothing going on behind his eyes at all. And I love that about his character because he's a very dumb character, you know?
He has the perfect blank expression. The other place where I really love it is Dodgeball, where he's Steve the Pirate.
So
and they're explaining the rules and he's just like,
yeah,
dressed as a pirate, though.
It's great. Yeah.
He's great.
So good. So the one thing that Chaucer can do for them, though, is write patents of nobility, which they need to prove that they're noble to fight in these tournaments.
Yeah.
And so he agrees to do it in exchange for clothes, shoes, and food, and he will get them their patents. Now, this is the first time that Alan Tudyk. Okay. This is the first time he threatens him.
Yeah.
And it's one of the first times that we hear him say, I will fong you till your insides are out, entrails or extrails. And that's because this movie's PG-13. You can't say the F word.
I know. To me, it was like the Battlestar Galactica frack word.
Yeah.
It's just their version of it was fong. And I thought that was very funny because he does yell it at many people throughout this movie.
Yeah, throughout the entire
He's
movie.
a total loose cannon.
Yeah.
Total loose cannon.
He is.
He's a wild card. And they can kind of get away with it by being like, oh, it's an old English way of saying it. Maybe. But it's more just because they couldn't say it.
Yeah.
They couldn't say the F word. Anyway, they make it to the next tournament. They turn in their patents of nobility. They accept them. And they get their first assignment for who they're going to be jousting later.
I had to bring this up. When the guy who is like, I guess there at the tournament, he like works for the tournament, checking in the knights or whatever. Instead of just saying, what events is your knight competing in? He's like, signify what events your knight's competing in. And then Bettany picks up the stick and like hits two things. And the guy has to like turn around and see which ones he hits and then writes it. I was like,
But then he doesn't turn around until
I know,
until after. And I was like, there's no way he could have seen.
He's just like, okay, so you're just looking at which ones are swinging. Why not just ask him, like, and write it down?
Not a great system.
To me, I was like, this is why the 1300s were terrible.
It is the worst time to be alive.
Oh, it would have been so bad.
And terrible.
It's not good now, but it would have been worse
Oh, yeah,
then.
it's much worse
terrible.
back then, yeah.
So as they're kind of getting settled at the tournament, Heath Ledger is riding through kind of the tournament grounds. And this is where he first sees Shannyn Sossamon and follows her like a fucking creep.
He does. And like, I mean, I guess it's because she's the only one walking in the street that doesn't like legit have shit all over her clothes. But like, yeah, he's just like immediately drawn to her for no reason.
Yeah. And he follows her literally into a church on a horse. And he's trying to talk to her and she's just like, I won't tell you my name. And we're like,
because I'm terrible.
Yeah, I'm the worst and I'm here to be the worst. And if you don't like it, you can fucking leave. And so he has to leave, in part because the priest yells at him for desecrating the house of God with a horse.
Right.
So they escort him out, and then the priest comes up to her and is like, it's such a shame that you're beautiful so that you can't concentrate more on God. And he's like, you should pray that you get old fast. And I was just like, what a weird thing to say to a person.
I honestly, though, I could see that being like a topic of conversation back then when things were terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a mask would be easier.
Oh, yeah.
Than just being like, I hope you age hella fast.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But, you know, it's the 1300s. She's gonna, you know? Like, don't worry. Life will be hard.
Oh, if she hasn't had the pox yet, she's gonna eventually, and then that skin, bye.
Oh, I mean, at the end of this, when we talk about are they still together, I'm going to say...
I'm pretty sure he's dead.
I was going to say yes, but they only lived 3.5 more years. Like, they die immediately after this movie's over. Like, of old age.
I think he dies. I think he dies of his injuries.
yeah.
In this
That could
movie.
very much,
Like, he
no way are
dies
they
of an
tending to those
infection.
correctly.
Yeah, no.
That is true. At the end, when he's riding without his armor, he's like, well, I'm fucking dead anyway. So, like, it doesn't matter. Do I want to die
Big time.
painlessly over a month from infection, or do I want to die right now? Either one's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he goes through his first jousting match. He wins. And then he has to go from there straight to sword. And he actually wins sword.
Oh, yeah. He kicks everyone's ass.
He kicks everyone's ass. But before he gets to go to the sword, they get kind of waylaid by the two bookies.
That's right.
That have Paul Bettany's character because he has gambled himself into impoverishment.
Well, he's now naked again. He's been on the screen 5 minutes, and 3.5 of those minutes he's been naked.
3.5. Also the amount of inches in his short crack. He does have just a shockingly short crack.
He is a tall guy, so I mean that is sort of
it's
strange.
probably perspective. I bet it's a normal crack. He's just a tall guy.
Maybe. Who knows?
I think it's because they shot him low, and if you shoot someone below the
it's
crack,
an angle,
it shortens it. Yeah.
I did have a sorority sister who had short crack syndrome, and it was at a time when low-rise jeans were very popular. And whenever she would sit, you would just be like, she's going to show crack any minute. No.
Wouldn't do it. So that was her time to shine. I'm so happy for her.
Exactly. I was too. And it was almost like she had no crack. And I was like, the world is your oyster. Like the possibilities are unlimited.
You wear any low jeans you want.
Any of them.
I find this conversation fascinating. I didn't know that it was the length of someone's crack that like would show or not show their crack in low-rise jeans. So,
well, yeah, because they're very low rise. So
no,
like,
I get it. That makes sense. I'm just saying that's like a thing I've never had to worry about as a man.
My husband, who has a long crack, even in regular pants, has to be careful. So like, it's a thing.
All bodies are different, you know?
Yeah. And they are all to be celebrated.
Exactly.
So they agree to pay after they win the sword competition, because that's when they'll have enough money to pay off his debt.
Yeah.
So he goes into the sword. He gets hit twice, but then immediately comes back and just wrecks this fool.
Yeah, it's like best of 5 hits, I guess.
Yeah.
And he does get hit twice because there's something wrong with his armor. Oh, he can't lift his right arm up all the way because the armor's fucked or whatever.
Well, and the armor wasn't made for him too, so.
That is true. But at the end, when he wins, they raise his sword arm all the way up. I was like,
I noticed that too.
So like, could he raise? I'm so confused. Anyway, it was just like a made up plot point to make him have a leg down in the competition, but he still overcomes it or whatever. I got it. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of those things where I'm like, if you had to cut 20 minutes out of this movie, you could cut all of Shannyn Sossamon, or you could cut kind of this section. I think could go pretty easily.
You can cut some of this.
Yeah, I don't think we need the sword stuff at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get a huge speech from Paul Bettany, who is now their herald that's going to travel with them to herald him at every match.
Yeah.
And he does this entire speech to silence before Roland is just like, yeah!
And then everyone starts cheering. Yeah.
And it's because the crowd did not understand English and did not know they were supposed to cheer. And so
that's
Roland,
funny.
His like, yeah, gets them to cheer. And then they were like, well, I guess we could do more takes of it, but that was really funny. And so they just kept it in.
I love that.
Oh, wait,
That's
so
great.
that wasn't like in the script initially?
No. It was not.
Holy, because it is great. It is very funny. Because he's talking at
super
like
funny.
an elevated version of English that like if you didn't know how to read, you probably wouldn't understand half the words, even if you just heard them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like too much for the circumstance. Everyone's sort of like, okay, yeah, oh, that's so, it works so well. I love that.
It does. It's really funny. So we then get a montage of them winning fights to taking care of business.
So great.
So great.
But it is like the second of 25 montages in this movie. And we're only like 10 minutes in and we're already at our second montage. It's wild.
Yeah. Again, this movie is 40% montage.
Yeah.
He has to get his armor repaired. So they go to, there's a lady armorer. And she's like, oh, they said I couldn't do it because I was a lady. And they were like, no, they just said you're bad at armor. And she was just like, give me that fucking armor. I'll
well, it's because
show them.
There's like a huge fucking crack in his armor and they won't let him compete. So he's trying to get someone to fix it for free or, on like layaway or consignment or whatever you call that to pay him later. And all the men armorers are like, no, you got to pay us right now. So they're like, maybe try her. And that's why he does that. He sort of like manipulates her. But like that could have been a sweet like meet cute moment for like the love interest. I don't know. I was pulling for Kate. I liked Kate a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's the best.
So we cut to the stands where Shannyn Sossamon's character is sitting ready to watch the joust, and Count Adamar, aka Rufus Sewell, is trying to chat her up, and she's like, not having it.
She's like, aren't you 40?
Probably, but he could still get it.
I mean, he is. I mean, I wish I looked that
man.
good. Like, yeah, he's a handsome dude.
Good looking dude. I stand by. I really like him in Tristan and Isolde. That's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, but also a villain, right?
No, because remember,
that's
he's
right.
like,
No, yeah, you're right.
He's kind of a good guy. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
seen that movie in so long, but I might want to watch it just to see him not be a villain because he's always a villain.
He's not a villain, and baby Henry Cavill is in it. You can't go
Yeah,
wrong.
that's right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't thought about that movie. I haven't even heard the name Tristan and Isolde in 20 years.
Yeah.
But Rufus Sewell's the kind of guy that could be like, hey, I think I'm just going to like retire and become a handsome billionaire. And you're like, you probably could. Like, you're that kind of handsome.
You should do that.
Yeah.
You got those freaky light eyes and it looks cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
He doesn't care what she thinks. He pictures her as property. We know this from the things that he says later in the movie.
Well, and also like from the time. He's a nobleman of this time. time, like he probably does see her as property because he was raised to see her as property because in the eyes of everyone, women were property. It's a terrible time to be alive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, horrible time. And so he doesn't really seem to care whether or not she's interested in the things that he's saying, which he just, like, I don't know if you've ever been on a date like this where someone just keeps talking even though you've shown no interest in the conversation, but that's what's going on here.
I feel like I'm being attacked right now.
Oh, I don't know. Have you done this to somebody?
Yeah, why do you feel that way?
I'm just joking. Although I'm sure I've been on plenty of dates where I was like trying a little bit too hard to be funny and charming and like it just was not landing because she was devoid of humor. That's right. I'm going to make it her fault. This is also why the date didn't go well because I'm a terrible person. But you know what I'm saying? Like if you don't have chemistry with somebody and you're trying to overcompensate and it's just like not working.
Yeah, like if you go to Aroma Cafe on Sunset and he shows up an hour late and just talks about positivity seminars for 20 minutes straight.
Oh, that sounds fucking terrible. I would leave immediately.
I would have, except my coffee was really good. And I was like,
They make good coffee.
They make good coffee. I'm like, I'm going to finish this.
And you know what? Good story. Like, I'm loving this anecdote.
Yeah, there you go.
Positivity seminars.
He also had pretended to be Australian. It's a real
Wait,
weird...
I'm sorry. He pretended to be Australian?
Yeah.
Like he was pretending. Like he was from like Burbank, but he was like, good day, mate.
Correct.
That is bonkers.
So we had met on an app, and of course my rule for apps is like if I'm going to meet you, it's in public and public space.
This is very smart.
Because you're not getting murdered today, Paige. Yeah.
I'm not buying whatever murder you're selling. So via text, like via messages on the app, had messaged, and he would be like, "Good day," or like, "Mate," or "Crikey," and I was like, "That's weird," because like I have Italian relatives, and nobody's like, "It's me, your aunt." Like that, nobody does that via text. That's crazy.
Oh, but they should. They absolutely should.
Well, and maybe and in my mind, I was like, maybe he's just like extremely Australian. I don't know. And so we show up there, and he has like, or I show up there, he shows up late, and he has no accent at all. And I'm just like, I thought you were Australian because you said you were. And like the text message, he's like, no, but like my friends are. And I was like,
what?
That's, I don't,
Buddy.
what? And then talked about positivity seminars for like 20 minutes.
That would be like if when I came back from Japan, I started texting my friends, oh, konnichwa, and shit like that. Like
Arigato.
what are you,
Wow.
Todd, why are you wearing a dress? This is a kimono.
You're like, that's not even how it's pronounced.
That's not how they say it.
Get out.
Get
No,
out.
it's not how they say it.
This is racist and appropriative, and I need to end this date right now.
Oh,
but I also want to finish
boy.
this coffee, so I'm going to need you to go over there so I can finish the coffee.
I'm having a nice time by myself, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful I don't have to date anymore because like I hated that whole process. And I was bad at it. I'll be honest with you. I'm not good.
I feel like if I had to do it again, I could, but I could also just continue having cats.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to two people who have between us 9 cats. So like, yeah. I mean, you're talking to the right group of people to just throw it all in and get cats. Although, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're very happily taken, and so am I. So, like, we have been successful thus far.
Yeah, just all of our backup plan is cats.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be alone before I'll ever have to engage in conversation with someone I don't want to. I like that.
100%.
Life is too short. I'm not.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that.
Yeah, you know what? My cats never texted me to be like, "Good day, mate. Where's my food?"
Put another shrimp on my plate. Like, what are we doing right now? Let's do this. Yeah.
Anyway, back to this movie.
Yes.
So Shannyn Sossamon's not feeling it. She doesn't want to hear about his positivity seminars.
Although I'd probably buy one from Rufus Sewell, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, just to look at his gorgeous eyes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, down in the arena, William is getting ready to joust, a.k.a. Ulrich von Liechtenstein.
Oh, yeah. That's his name.
And he tells Paul Bettany, like, "That's the girl. That's yes." And Paul Bettany's like, "You crazy."
You got to aim lower. And he's like, why? I'm already pretending to be a knight. Like, why not just aim for the moon? It's fine.
Exactly. But this is also where, because we cut back up into the stands, Rufus Sewell tells Shannyn Sossamon the rules. And it really serves just to give us, the audience, the rules as well. Where you get 1 point for breaking a lance on the torso, 2 points for breaking a lance on someone's face, which like seems like you should get more points for that is all I'm saying. And 4.
Well, he even does say it's very difficult to do because if you hit someone in the face, it'll most likely like glance off of it and
Glance
not
off.
break. Yeah.
3, if you remove a rider from their horse, you get 3 points, but also you win the horse. And he does this like, I've never been unhorsed. And she's like, nor have I. And I was like, what a weird way to talk about sex.
Oh, wait, is that what they were talking about?
I think that's what she's talking
I
about.
think that's what she's talking
I mean,
about.
that's fair, I guess, but like completely missed that. Like when I first saw that and again today, I was just like, I guess she hasn't been knocked off a horse. Cool. Good to know. I thought she was just like, I'm so bored of this conversation. Please leave me alone. Like that was the vibe I got from her.
I mean, it's definitely that as well, but
Yeah.
that last comment is oddly sexual.
I think it's her way of being like, you won't fuck me.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's what you're here for, mm-mm.
Yeah. I'm not letting your lance anywhere near my
Exactly.
armor. Let's put it that way. So as they're talking, William, aka Ulrich, rides past and is like, I still don't have your name. And she's just like, still not telling you, ha ha ha. And then
That is dialogue from this movie. I mean, it may as well be that. Like, it's that bad.
yeah. And then Adamar, Rufus Sewell, is just like, your armor is old. You busted. And so he's
Start
like,
straight up roasting him.
Yeah.
yeah. So he kind of just rides off. But he has to basically joust against Sir Thomas Colville.
Yeah.
And they both break 2 lances, or 2 rounds, 1 lance each.
Yeah.
And then they meet in the middle, and Thomas Colville's like, hey, I'm hurt. I can't continue, but I want to preserve my honor. Would you allow me to do that? And so they draw, basically. Instead, so Ulrich doesn't take the win so that he can preserve his honor.
Yeah.
Which is seen as mercy. He could have easily won, but he chose not to,
Yeah.
essentially.
Or he could have forced, I mean, who eventually does become the prince, right? Like, that's the reveal with this guy. Like, he could have forced him to actually like joust that last round because you have to go three rounds. So he does like the honorable, merciful thing here and takes the draw.
Yep. Anyway, so in announcing, or I guess before they battle, this is the first time we see Paul Bettany announce him. And it's this like big, long story craziness of like, he was in Greece to understand the silence of a whisper, just like weirdness. And and the crowd loves it. But he finishes and Watt is just like, what? Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm winning their hearts.
Yeah, it's the best. I love it.
It's crazy. But they do draw. We cut to later that night where they're all sleeping head to feet, which I think is really funny.
It's very cute, on like a pile of fur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cute.
I loved it because it's Robert Baratheon and Heath Ledger, and then you just see Alan Tudyk's feet. Like
But they react to the conversation. It's very funny. Yeah. And he's just like, oh my gosh, she's so perfect. I'm in love with her. And I'm like, you don't know her name. You have not met her. Like, what?
Yeah.
She is devoid of any sort of characteristics.
And also terrible.
And also terrible. And then we cut inside to her room where she's like, I kind of love him though. And her lady's maid is like, ooh.
Of
And
course
I'm like,
you do.
Again, you've barely met. Like, this is weird.
Yeah, but I get
I mean,
it. 'cause
lifespans were short then.
I know, exactly.
You really
That's
just
true.
gotta act.
Yeah.
Got to get it in when you can. I feel you.
And I get it. Heath Ledger's super hot. Like,
He's super hot.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. So we cut to the next day where he has to joust Lord Adamar, or I think it's Sir Adam. Who cares? Rufus Sewell.
Yeah.
And we know that he's basically undefeated. So she sends her lady's maid to give him a token to wear during the joust.
Yeah, it's like a scarf or something.
Yeah, he's got it like in his helmet or whatever. So the joust starts, him versus Adamar. Adamar is terrifying, but he does manage to break a lance and stay on his horse. So he's like, okay, like I'm not losing. But his armor is failing and he can't breathe. And Adamar actually has a shard of lance stuck in his side that he pulls out, bloody, which is like, yikes.
Yeah.
But they give him advice to like, okay, he aims too high. If you roll your shoulder, his lance might glance off of you and you might actually get a lance on him.
Yeah.
And so he does. So now Ulrich's ahead, and Adamar's pissed. So he knocks Ulrich's helmet off, which has to hurt like a bitch.
Yeah.
But this is where we get a flashback to William and his dad when he was little, watching the knights come in for the tournament. And this is the conversation of a man can change his stars, basically.
Which at this time, you couldn't. Like,
right, no.
You were a serf the entire existence. Like,
yes.
But I loved the father-son storyline here.
Yes.
It's super sweet and very unrealistic.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah.
William does manage to stay on his horse despite losing his helmet. But he also loses Jocelyn's token. It comes off with the helmet.
Yeah.
And now Adamar has beat him by one lance. And he rides back past him and just says, "See me again when you're worthy," and then hands the token back to Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Which was like...
It's a real, like, catty bitch move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it. It's already been brought. Like, yeah. It's and we do see that Ulrich does win for sword, and he makes a lot of money, and all of his like posse is like, well, let's just do sword the whole time because you can always win, and then we'd have money. And he's like, no, it's jousting or nothing. Fuck the sword. And they're like, oh, damn it.
Well, that's incredibly stupid, but okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So they pay off the bookies, who are both named for people who are in Canterbury Tales.
I figured it had to be that because like he spends so much time with them and then they never come back. You're like, okay, this has to be a literary reference that I don't get because I'm dumb. Mm-hmm. I don't like how quickly you guys both agreed with the I'm dumb statement. You're like, oh yeah, that checks out, Todd. The fact that you don't know Canterbury Tales, that checks out.
No, I'm sitting there going like, yeah, me too. I don't know. Okay.
It's pretty fun. Like of all the
People like
old-timey texts, Canterbury Tales is a fun one.
I mean, if you can get me Paul Bettany reading Canterbury Tales as Chaucer, I'll listen to it. But
That'd
I'm
be fun.
certainly not going to read it. With my eyes like a baby? No.
Okay, but what if he could only read it in Middle English?
I'm here for Paul Bettany? Hell yeah. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he decides he's going to be tournament champion or nothing at all. Because now I think competition has gone to his head. So they pay off the bookies. They're going to go pay the armorer. And she offers to like, hey, I should actually make you new armor. Your armor wasn't built for you, so it's never going to fit right. You need your own armor.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, we don't really have money for that. She's like, it'll be free. Just take me to Paris. And they're like, no.
They literally say no. And then she breaks the head off the horse thing that she won because that was her payment or whatever. I love that.
And they then get like waylaid by Jocelyn's handmaid, who's just like, what color are you wearing to the banquet so she can dress like you? And he's just like, I wasn't gonna go to that. What color am I wearing? And Roland just describes the color of the tent behind her.
Well, not even the color, but also the wood toggles they use to close
toggles,
it up. And that's legit what he's wearing later. Like they make a tunic out of the tent. I was like, that's hilarious.
Great.
But also he reveals that he doesn't know how to dance. So Paul Bettany's character tries to teach him and Watt how to dance, and Watt doesn't lead. He follows like a girl, and he's just not good at it. And that's when the blacksmith pops in to be like, you guys are idiots. I will help you learn how to dance.
At this point, I'm like, I want to go to a dance like this. I want to learn how to do these fun little like partnery Renaissance dances. I want to do that.
I'm sure at the Ren Fair, or
they've
what is
got
it?
to have something.
The Renaissance Pleasure Fair and Festival in Irwindale, California. I'm sure you can learn.
Is it called the Pleasure Festival? Is that what
it's
Renaissance and Pleasure Fair. Fair with an E at the end.
Yeah, with an E. Renaissance Pleasure Fair and Festival, yeah.
Okay.
Lot of weird sex shit going on after hours there.
Of course it is, yeah.
Yep.
I bet that smells terrible.
I mean, it smells like horses.
That's what I mean. Like horses smell terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I remember the last time I went, I'd love to go again. It's a blast. There was a guy dressed as like a street preacher, but like an old-timey street preacher outside. And he was just like, behold, you ladies with your short sleeves. And he just like starts going off and he's like, you shall be stoned. And then he opens this case and he's like, but seriously though, I've got sativa, indica.
I love it. So he's like
the best
really having fun.
Yes.
He was like street preachering, like you would see it like outside Comic-Con, where it's like these horrible slogans on that's amazing.
But he was dressed like an old timey one. Yeah, he's in full like Renaissance preacher, street preacher regalia.
Oh man,
Selling
Very fun.
pot. It was amazing.
I
We were
love
like,
everything
we
about
don't
that.
need any, but yes. Like, you're
It's like
amazing.
the street preacher from Shakespeare in Love doing it.
Exactly like that.
Mm.
It's the same costume and everything.
By the way, the street preacher from Shakespeare in Love has the best story arc in that entire movie, and I love it for him.
Yes, it is very great.
Yeah.
So he gets to the banquet that night. Her hair is bonkers.
Yeah.
Like every time we see her hair, it's a new level of weird. Like,
It's like they had two hairdressers and they were both trying to like yes and each other behind like the camera. They were like,
and then they
oh,
just
wait.
started throwing scissors at each other and we're just catching her hair in the middle.
Yeah, and then this is the scene where she has face paint on too. There's no reason for that. Like, what is happening?
It looks like a Revo styler and a beach waver got in a fight. Like, it's real bad.
Some crimping going on in there.
Yeah, there's like crimping, but then also just like tufts of like feathers and color. And you're
Yeah.
just like, this wasn't even popular in 2001. I don't know. But they sit down to talk for a bit. And he says, you remind me of the Bible. And I just typed into my notes, thick. And then he doesn't.
That'd be good.
He's just like, oh, some story about, I wish this night could last forever. And I'm like, well, sure, fine. They all gather around a dance and they ask him to show them a dance from Gelderland. And so he makes one up, clearly. And it starts off as kind of like fun, courtly music, just very kind of calm. And then it transforms into David Bowie's Golden Years.
Right?
And
This is
it's
my favorite part of the
fucking
movie.
rad.
Yeah.
So good.
I love it.
They all just decided to just do like a mix between courtly dance and
Yep.
modern dance, and it's like, to me, this is the perfect encapsulation of like the tone of this movie is
Yeah.
this
Absolutely.
scene, and I love it.
Yeah.
So good. Meanwhile, the blacksmith is making the new armor anyway, and this is where she carves the Nike swooshes into it.
So funny.
But when they look at the armor the next day, they all think that it's too small and too light. And she's like, no, I made it light on purpose so
Yeah.
that you could like wear it and be more comfortable. And they test it with like a beam where they like pommel him into like a pile of bags or whatever. And he doesn't feel a thing. It actually works.
But I mean, it's because she invented steel or whatever. Like she invented
Yeah.
this like new metallurgical technique. So it's like
A new,
really
she
thin
like
and light,
heats
but
it
super
differently. Yeah.
She like invented mithril or whatever. Like I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Adamantium, you know, or vibranium,
That's
whatever.
gotta be. It's gotta be. Holy shit! If this is a shared universe with the MCU, I would be so fucking happy. Like at the end of this, like Nick Fury comes in with an eye patch. Like we've got to take you to the future
I can see
to
it.
joust Red Skull.
It's like, we need you to joust aliens.
I mean, it would be a terrible movie, but I would pay $20 to go see it.
Thanos is currently destroying a Ren fair. We need you stat.
That I would like to see.
He snapped and all the turkey legs were gone.
Oh, that bastard! He's just eating the last turkey leg with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like,
I mean, that is one of the best parts of Ren fair, is just walking around eating a turkey leg like you're Henry
it's
VIII.
great.
So fun. So good. That's like next week or something, right?
It ends next week, I think. I
I
know.
get my ass to the Ren fair.
you do.
Anyway, so we cut to the next tournament, and all of the other knights are struggling to be lifted onto their horses by their men because of their armor.
Yeah.
And they all laugh at him and his armor, and then he just easily hops into his horse, and they're like, oops. Show them,
Yeah.
I guess. But we cut to his first joust, and he unseats that guy with one lance. But it's because they lied to him about him. They're like, he raised his taxes to pay for this tournament. And as he rides off, they're like, oh, that's probably true. Like,
I do love that.
maybe.
But then he just wins the horse. I wish they made more of like you win the dude's horse if you unseat them or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I would just sell it back to the dude.
Or just sell it to anybody. But
Smart.
like you see Wash or Watt
Watt.
in this movie, you see him riding one of the horses that he unseats someone off of because they just
Yes.
have like a stable of horses at the end of this movie.
Yep.
But they don't do enough with that. Like I wanted it like a Fast and the Furious 1, like racing for pink slips type of thing. But like they never do that.
Like a horse in space or like jumping out of a plane
that would have been a Knight's Tale 10 or whatever.
with
Like,
Ludacris riding it. Like,
It's
I'm
just
here
Vin
for it.
Diesel with the space helmet on, horse with the space helmet on. Like,
Yeah, he's like, you can change your stars, but you can't change your family. Family.
I'd pay to see it. I would absolutely pay to see it.
yeah, $20. I would eat
Absolutely.
all the popcorn there. Let's do it.
Yes. So we cut to the next joust, which is actually Adamar versus Thomas Colville, which, as you'll remember, is the one that he had a draw with earlier on.
Yeah.
And Adamar quickly withdraws because they found out that Thomas Colville is actually the prince.
Yeah.
And Ulrich instead is just like, fuck it. I'm a ride anyway.
Yeah.
Even though they try to make him forfeit, he rides anyway. He knowingly, and they're like, you're going to endanger the prince. And he's like, he knowingly endangers himself.
Yeah, he's the one that entered the tournament. I didn't make him do that.
And the prince like looks when people keep withdrawing, looks disappointed. Like this
Yeah,
guy's
he
trying
wants
to
to-
joust.
he
He
wants
wants to
to
joust.
ride.
I'm real
Yeah.
joust with him.
He went through all the trouble of like, making up a fake identity and showing up here. Like, why not? Let's just like go.
Yeah.
Although I do understand, like, if you hurt the prince, they would kill you. So like, there is a level of danger there.
The stakes
but-
are pretty high.
Yeah.
So this is a thing. Did either of you watch The Tudors?
Yes.
Okay. There is an episode where I think it's Henry Cavill's character. It's either him or one of the other guys is jousting against the king and does hurt him and is like, God, I hope the king survives.
Yeah.
Because even though I was his best friend and he willingly jousted, if he dies, I'm fucking toast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like a whole episode of them like trying to see if the king is going to survive. And the other guy's just like pacing in the hallway.
Just like,
'cause,
I hope.
yeah, I can't run away. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Very stressful. So it ends up being a draw. But Thomas Colville's like, so you knew who I was and you rode anyway. And he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm not a person who withdraws. That's just not me. So yeah, I'll always ride against you. Good luck with the tournament or whatever.
Yeah.
So he goes on to win tournament champion, but he feels like it's kind of a hollow victory because he didn't defeat Adamar. He's not happy until he defeats Adamar.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, Jocelyn comes up and is like, so what are you wearing to the banquet? And he's just like, fuck you and your clothes. And you're like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was certain I missed a scene. I hadn't gone anywhere, but I felt as though I must have missed something massive. He calls her a stupid girl, doesn't he? He says something like that.
Girl. He's silly girl. You're just
Yes.
a silly girl.
You're just. I was like, the fuck.
And then she says,
Yeah.
I'd rather be a silly girl with a rose
flower.
than a...
Yeah, silly girl with a flower than a silly boy with a horse and a stick.
Yeah, and this is when Alan Tudyk says, it's called a lance, duh, or whatever. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, but it is dumb. Like, he's just mad because Adamar wasn't there. I mean, he still won, so he has a shitload
and
of
I
money
think
now.
He
Like,
takes it out on her, which is, I know we don't love her character, but it's absolutely, she doesn't deserve to have this taken out on her.
no, all she did was be there to support him.
Don't belittle her.
Yeah.
Yeah, all she did was walk around with her weird ass spiky hair and, like, give people scarves.
She spent hours making somebody else do her hair for this.
Yes.
Yeah, hours. And all of the grease in the kingdom.
Fetch me the grease.
Bring the grease. So we cut to basically a montage of more tournaments, and Adamar's not there because he's actually at war. And
Yeah.
so we see him get all of the tournament results, seeing that Ulrich has won pretty much every single tournament.
He has. He's won 4 in a row.
Super mad about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, we cut back to Ulrich, who's trying to write a letter to Jocelyn to apologize. And this is where they kind of like go around and all contribute to the letter, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And it's intercut with her reading the letter. And her hair is like full blown Cheetah Girls on the Disney Channel levels of weird poofy pigtails. Like I don't know who they hired, but I know that person used to work on Disney Channel. Like that was her job before this.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. But so she reads the letter. We cut to Paris, where his next tournament is, and Watt meets up with them. And he's like, well, did she give me anything? Like, did she read it? Did she give me anything in return? And Watt kisses him, and he's like, oh my God, but it's from her. Even though it was
It's
Watt
very
kissing
cute.
him.
I
It's
love
very
it so
cute.
much.
Especially in 2001, we absolutely could have made a homophobic joke, and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
we
They
didn't.
don't.
And they don't.
He's just happy about it.
It's
Yeah.
very cute.
I mean, you can see there is some apprehension from especially Alan Tudyk's character because he knows he has to do it. But like after it happens, like no one's like, you're gay or whatever. Everyone's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, she kissed him.
She's like, you kiss.
You. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I love it.
So they also reveal that Adamar is not at this tournament.
Right.
and he's disappointed. But we cut to a tavern later where Ulrich's posse is kind of just seated around a table, and they're kind of trading barbs with a table of Frenchmen who are just like, an Englishman will not win the tournament, and they're just like, fuck you.
Well, they're saying that because they're betting against them. They're betting that
Yes.
Ulrich won't win this tournament, and they're like, our crew, King Baratheon, Alan Tudyk, and Bettany are like, well, we should bet all of this, because if we win, then I can open my own tavern, I can write full-time, like everyone has, Kate can have a forge, like everyone has their own thing that they're doing it for, right? And the French guys are like egging them on to like start the bet or actually enter into the bet, I
Place
guess.
the bet, yeah. And they do. But then we cut to Ulrich meeting up with Jocelyn in the church. And she's like, if you love me, you'll lose. And I'm like, this is idiotic.
This is insane, yeah.
Yeah. This is where I'm thinking, oh, they want us to dislike her.
Right?
Yeah.
But then it seems like, just kidding, they don't.
They don't.
But this is a very interesting choice.
Yeah, she feels like the girl, like, I don't know if you've ever had someone who has a girlfriend that starts fights with other people at bars and then expects other people to finish them.
Yes, I have. It's terrible.
That's the vibe I'm getting from her.
I have a cracked tooth because of it. I'm not joking.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, her reasoning is like, you have to put me before your own ego.
Right.
She's like, okay, I see what you're doing here, but
But
no.
like, you both have significant others. Would you like want to put their life at risk to have them prove to you that like they love you?
No, yeah, that's the other part. Is it's not just like the game. It's like
Yeah.
he could and will get very hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say recently I asked my husband, if the government comes to take me away, will you at least try to fight them off with the machete? And he's like, I think they're going to have guns.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't want to unnecessarily endanger a person I love. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Like, if the zombies come, I really hope I'm standing behind him. But,
Honestly, me
Right.
too.
right?
Yeah.
If there were no zombies, different story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but this obviously causes a problem for the bet. So we start the tournament and he's losing and getting badly hurt, like really badly hurt.
I mean, he literally is just standing there taking lance against lance against lance to his chest, like over and over and over. Yeah.
And she is like, oh, my God, he really loves me. She's loving it. She's absolutely loving it.
Not only is she like saying that with her eyes, she's like hugging onto the pole that she's standing next to.
Yeah, it's the best thing that has ever happened to her.
As if the people around her wouldn't be like, what the fuck is wrong with her?
Why is Jocelyn fucking that pole? Like, yeah.
She's just up against it like, weird.
It's great.
But then she sends her handmaiden to be like, just kidding. She wants you to win now. And it's like, and it's as they're relocating his shoulder, essentially.
It looks so painful too. They're like trying to pop it back in place. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. Anyway, so he does win. They collect the money from the French and tell them to come see them in London at the World Championships. That night, Jocelyn sneaks into his tent, and it's implied that they get down even though he is in a ton of pain, and it's all her fault.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably why it happened. She feels bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, he did what she asked him to do, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah, the movie definitely treats this like it's a romantic moment for them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm still thinking this is a toxic dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it
she's
is.
going to put an eye out with her hair.
Also that.
It's wild.
I do love what Paul Bettany says as he sees her sneaking into his tent, though. Like,
Bed her well, or bed him well, my lady.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that Chaucer.
But in this little tent conversation is where he asks her basically like, she says, my handmaiden says, sometimes they call you William. Is that true? And he says, yes. Does that matter to you? Basically being like, I'm not who I say I am. Does that matter to you? And she's like, it doesn't matter as long as it's still you.
I got the impression that she thought like one of his other names was William and they just
Yeah,
call him
maybe.
William because this is at a time when like nobility would have like 15 fucking names. So
Yeah. Leave some names for the rest of
yeah,
us.
you bastards. Yeah.
Hogging all the names.
But I mean, I have a friend who has like 7 names because
Why?
he is like distantly related to some royalty. Like not even, I think it's French royalty, so that doesn't even exist anymore. But like the names that I know of his are like Herschel, Gaston, Gregory. Like he's got 4 first names
Whoa.
and then a last name, and we all just called him Beau. which was
Yeah.
it was not one of his 8 names or whatever, but he's a great guy. Like, I love him to death, but it's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. I don't even want my middle name.
I mean,
We don't really need it.
No.
my middle name is my fake last name, so
Well, yeah. I guess that I understand
Yeah.
that. That sort of makes sense, but
yeah. Anyway, we cut to them crossing the English Channel on like a chain boat.
which I don't. Okay, it cannot be. That cannot be. It cannot be them
It's
crossing
so
the English
long.
Channel, because that would be like, that's like 90 miles. There's no way that fucking dude is carrying them 90 miles across the English
He's
Channel.
not carrying them, he's just pulling.
That's what I'm not gonna care. There's no way. It's probably the Thames. It's probably the river in between London and like the countryside of London.
Okay, the 20-mile chain. They show transportation across the English Channel in a chain ferry. This by itself is a historical inaccuracy. During the time, they
Okay,
would not
good.
be able to create a 20-mile chain that crosses the English Channel. But even if they could fund and create it, the cold weather and turbulence of the channel would cause potential dangers to other passengers. A chain ferry would take 16 to 18 hours if they could.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But this is depicted as being their entrance into England. Now, there were chain ferries for smaller bodies of water, absolutely.
That's why I thought it was the Thames. I thought they had already gotten
Well,
to
the
England.
Thames is already
but they were. I know,
in.
but then the city they go into after this is London. So like, that's why I was like, it's the Thames. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. In the movie, it's supposed to be the channel, but the Thames makes more
It definitely is played like this is the first time they've been back in their homeland of England for
Right.
2, 5, 7, and then 12
12
years for all of them, right,
Yeah.
respectively. So like it is played like it's that dude walked them across the English Channel.
Yeah, and we do cut to a flashback from William of his dad essentially taking him the other direction.
Yeah.
To become one of Sir Ector's apprentices and then leaving him behind as like a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
To then start working as an apprentice. And that's the last time he saw his father.
Yeah, it's super sad. But I also like that they show, because this is the first time we really meet the knight from the very, very beginning, the guy who dies.
And he's not a bad guy.
No, he seems
not
like he's
a
a
bad
super
guy.
nice guy. Like, he sort of like, show me your teeth, show me your big, strong arms. And he's like, he's not much now, but he's got some spirit. I'm happy to take him on.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to
Yeah.
your dad. I just like that they could have made him mean or whatever, but they decided to make him a sweet, nice guy. And I like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that guy sort of extensively becomes his dad. Like, he is the father figure in his life for the majority of his life at this point.
So they ride back into town, and there's this whole processional for the tournament. And he sees little boys watching their entrance the same way he did as a child.
One even cuts to seeing him, like the
Yeah.
child version of him standing on the stocks, which we actually see him in like a few minutes. But like
Right.
he sees himself there. I was like, oh, that's cool. It's a nice little nod to like, him acknowledging the kid who he once was.
Yeah. And then there's also a bunch of ladies screaming for him. And Adamar is here. So he's finally going to get to face off. And Adamar now knows about Jocelyn, that he has like a thing with Jocelyn.
Oh, yeah.
But he tells Ulrich, he's like, well, I'm going to marry her. So fuck you.
I've already
basically.
entered into negotiations with her father. Yeah.
So we cut to William rides through Cheapside and finds a little girl, asks her about kind of where his father might live. He still lives in the same place, but he is now blind.
Yeah.
So he goes and has kind of like dinner with his father and tells him about his whole life. And their reunion is so, like, I was just sobbing like a crazy person.
I cry more during this scene than I do at the end of the movie. Like, I am sobbing. Like, the moment the dad realizes that the person at the door knows his son, not that the person at the door
Right.
is his son, I start crying at that point. And then, like, I'm just full on, like, blubbering when they embrace. I'm like, fuck. It's so sad.
The only part that makes me cry more than that is towards the very, very end when they announce him with his actual name.
Yeah.
That's what got me.
I cried there
And he's
too.
like, your dad heard that. And you're just like, oh, God, he waited so long and he
know.
changed the stars. Anyway, so he goes outside to try and fix his father's roof. And that's where Adamar basically sent someone to follow him and spots him.
Well, because his dad, before he went blind, was a roofer, more or less. Like, that's what a thatcher
Yeah,
is.
thatcher.
So, like, and they even sort of make a comment about that. He's like, a thatcher with a leaky roof is like a bad look, Dad. And he's like, well, I'm
Right.
blind. And he's like, okay, well, I'll fix it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So Adamar sees it, so now he knows. And we cut to the next day. He's getting Ulrich's getting ready for the tournament, and he's telling them that he's like, I saw my dad. He's alive. It's a whole thing. But Jocelyn and Chaucer come over, and they're like, hey, they know that you're not a knight. They're gonna arrest you. So you can run now, or you can go out there and they're gonna put you in prison and then put you in the stocks. Like, you are gonna be arrested. And everyone tells him to run. And this is where Jocelyn has her whole, like, let's be poor because the poor can marry for love. And it's like, you don't get it.
I mean, I believe that her character would say that and then immediately regret it when she realized what poor was.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he refuses. He's not going to run. And he walks into the arena, head held high, and he ends up briefly in prison where Adamar gets to basically just kick the shit out of him for a little bit.
It's not good.
I hate this so much because he is on
a pillory.
Well, the pillory is what they put him in later, right? Like,
those are the stocks.
Oh, okay. So like that wood plank that's his arms are around, like he can move his like torso with that wood. I would have beaten the fuck out of Rufus Sewell with the wood that my arms were tied to. It drove me insane that he just stood there and took that beating.
Also, I wonder, I'm sure, couldn't you like lift that bar over your head and then maneuver with that?
Yes.
Maybe your shoulders aren't flexible enough necessarily, but I kept being
maybe Heath Ledger's aren't.
I was like, couldn't you just move that bar forward and then...
Or, I mean, even if you couldn't move it over your head and use it that way, you could turn quickly and hit him in the fucking face. And that's what I would have done over and over and over until he was dead.
So I just looked it up to make sure that I wasn't wrong about stocks and pillory.
Yeah.
So apparently they're kind of almost interchangeable. The stocks are the framework with holes for securing the ankles and or wrists. The pillory is a framework on a post with holes for the head and hands.
Okay.
So even though they say that he's in the stocks later, he is technically in the pillory.
In the pillory, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
You're welcome.
But that's where we see him next. Like after that, I call this the gladiator scene, because it's like your hero and your villain in prison together talking, and then the hero gets beat up or whatever. After that scene, you see him in the pillory. Like it goes right from that to that, yeah.
And all of his friends are trying to defend him, but nobody, people are just throwing food and then they won't listen to Chaucer. And it is kind of frustratingly enough, it's the common people and it's almost like he was one of you.
Yeah.
Like you should, why? But out of the crowd, the prince emerges and is just like, I know you're a good dude because you've been good to me and your people love you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to knight you anyway. Now you're Sir William, and no one can say shit because I'm the prince, and I said so.
I love it. He's like, my personal historians looked into it, and they are unimpeachable, or whatever he says. And I'm like, I guess you're the prince, so you could just make up shit back at that point, and it was cool. So awesome.
Yeah, whenever you want to.
This is also the first time I saw that actor in anything, and I have seen him in so much.
James
and he
Purfoy.
Is so good in everything.
In Rome. HBO's Rome.
Dude. He's the best Mark Antony I've ever seen on screen. He's so fucking good.
So great.
Yeah.
Oh, I also love his like long fur trimmed leather coat that he's wearing.
Honestly, I wish I had it.
It's cool, man.
I have
it's
a thing
really
for
cool.
like eccentric leather jackets.
Nice.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Now, they let him back into the tournament. Adamar's obviously not happy about it. And so we see that he has tipped his lance so that he has like a fake like fist on it because all of his head's fists. And below it is just like sharpened to a point and there's a metal tip on it.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
It's real fucked up.
Ooh, it's scary.
So they joust for the first round and he gets Heath Ledger in the shoulder, basically burying the tip of that lance in his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's immediately, like Heath Ledger feels it immediately. He can barely hold the lance. Like he's not doing good.
Yeah, it feels like it's like right in those tendons where like, oof, it would be bad.
Yeah.
Yep. And he ends up with another lance.
Rufus Sewell's character ends up with either lance because they go for the second time and Heath Ledger can't even lift his lance up. So like he sort of gets a free hit on him.
Yeah. And he can't breathe in his armor. So now they're having to take his armor off.
Yeah.
And they're strapping the lance to his arm. And to buy them time, Paul Bettany's like, I have to give an introduction. I didn't get a chance to.
I love that he's literally standing on like the wood plank that's right in front of like the prince and his wife, the princess, I'd imagine. And he's just like walking in front of them.
He stands on their little armrests of their
does.
chairs.
At the very end, he like walks over to them, and the prince is just like looking up at him like, this is great. I love everything about this. I am in no way taking this as like a slight against my honor, like that he really would have. Like they would have killed that person if they had done that in real life. Yeah. But I love that the prince is like, this is fucking dope.
Yes. Oh, hey, man, it's you.
He's like, I love Chaucer. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. But this is where he announces him as Sir William Thatcher.
Yeah.
And they're like, your father heard that. And I'm just like, no, God, he heard it. And so Heath Ledger's character jousts without armor. And his only option to win is to unseat Rufus Sewell's character.
Or kill him, they say.
Or kill him.
Yeah.
And so he charges at him and yells his own name because he finally gets to use it.
I sort of think that that's a little funny, but I would be thrown off.
I think so too.
If I was Rufus Sewell's character and I was like, why is he yelling his own name?
It would be unnerving. Because he says it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes on for such a long time
like
that I do
12
think I would be
seconds.
like, what?
Yeah.
It's Braveheart levels of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But like at least in Braveheart, he's yelling freedom or probably something anti-Semitic off character because it's Mel Gibson and he's terrible. But like in this movie, I do think Rufus Sewell's like, is he saying his own, was his actual name William? Like I thought it was Ulrich. And then as he's like having that moment in his head, he gets destroyed because he's not paying attention to what's actually happening.
Yeah, and he does unhorse him. He falls flat on his back as Ulrich predicted earlier, and everyone kind of pops their head in and they do the you've been weighed, you've been measured, and you've been found wanting.
Yeah. But that scene like never really happens. It's like
it's like a dream.
Imagines it.
Yeah, it's like a dream sequence because that happens as he's falling off the horse, and then from that it cuts back to him completing the fall onto the ground. Yeah.
Right. And then we cut to essentially William celebrating because he won and kissing Jocelyn.
Right.
And
that's the movie.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what do you guys think about A Knight's Tale?
It holds up, I would say.
It really does.
Yeah.
I'd say it's funnier as a grown-up, to be honest.
Oh, I will say when I watched this the first time, I was much younger, obviously. Like, I did not pick up on a lot of the more adult-ish humor, and I sort of enjoyed that. Although I still cried at the points that I cried at today, but I probably cried at them more today than I did in 2001.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I love when a movie has people just being good to each other and it doesn't feel the need to insert, like, there was no conflict between the friends.
Yeah.
There was no, like, nobody was bitter or mean to each other. Like, it just, I feel like it's like the harder choice to make that work, where people just like each other and they're trying to help everybody out.
Right.
And I just love to see that in any context. And so I found that those are like the best moments of the movie to me. I know it's technically a rom-com, but for me, all of the like friendship stuff and them trying to help Will out, I was like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
Love this.
I mean, there really isn't much conflict outside of the straight up just class warfare that we're seeing on the screen, right? It is very much like this peasant versus nobility type thing. And I mean, I'm a sucker for that kind of movie just because I fucking hate capitalism so much. But I do sort of love this movie probably because of that. I mean, it really isn't even much drama between the two quote unquote love interests. Like they have that one scene where they're forced to fight for no reason, but there's no real ramifications of that other than the letter that he sends her later on. Like, and it's sort of just cool after that. So it's fine.
Yeah.
So, Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Jousting, fun facts. I will say that if you want more fun facts about this movie, there is like a behind the scenes documentary that was originally included on the DVD that I'd seen a couple times.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, okay.
Super fun. I think you can still find it on YouTube. There's a whole lot of extra fun facts. We don't have time to get through all of them. I just pulled some fun, interesting ones.
Awesome.
So, the director once said in an interview about this movie that he used modern music in the movie to show modern audiences what people back then felt about their own music. Because when Renaissance music is played, we don't have the same kind of feeling about it, and it doesn't convey the emotional response that people back then had.
Yeah, that's fair.
So he picked music that would inspire an emotional response from a modern audience watching the movie in the same way that he thought audiences would react to the jousting.
That's cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love all the music they use in this, so I was here for it either way. It sort of felt like the opposite of Boz Lerman's Romeo and Juliet, where like the script was very like the actual like dialogue that was used in Shakespeare's time or whatever, but it was all like modernized. They had cars and guns and stuff like that. It's like the opposite of that, which I like Boz Lerman's Romeo and Juliet too. We should do that shit.
I love Boz Lerman's Romeo and Juliet.
It's a great one.
The guy who plays Mercutio in that version is awesome.
I thought you were going to say the guy who plays Romeo. I was going to be like,
No,
Leonardo
I mean,
DiCaprio?
Leonardo DiCaprio was great too.
Iconically Leonardo DiCaprio?
But I just love Mercutio. I love Mercutio. He's so great.
Our national treasure, Leonardo DiCaprio. Anyway, so there is a historical period of about a year in Geoffrey Chaucer's life, because historians have studied Chaucer extensively, but there's about a year where they have no records of anything that he did or what happened to him.
What?
So this movie is, in theory, set within that year.
Oh, that's very fun.
I love that.
Really like that.
I love
I like it a lot. Now, when they were making the lances, they actually had to find a way to make them splinter convincingly without hurting their stunt riders. And so the lances were actually hollowed out and scored so they would break easily. And the tips are just made of balsa wood. So like very, very like breakable light wood.
Yeah.
But in the center of the lances, they would fill it with balsa chips and pasta to make it look like splinters when it splinters. Yes, uncooked pasta.
That's awesome. I do love the takes of like, especially when he's losing, quote unquote, and it just shows like his team.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they had to have like just staff people throwing buckets full of like sawdust and shit on them. I love those shots. They're so funny to me.
It's fun.
Now, on top of trying to make the lances look realistic, they also had trouble with some of the sound because a lot of the kind of scenery was kind of muddy, didn't have roads, and there's a lot of people bustling around, so it's hard to hear things. But for Foley, they always want to make sure that you can hear horses. It's like a thing where if you can't hear a horse, but it's walking, people get kind of weird out.
Yeah.
So almost all the horse sounds in this movie are made using coconuts.
Are they really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Incredible.
Because a lot of time the horses are in mud, so it's kind of
Right.
So
but you want that solid like
you
trum,
want
trum, trum.
So they dubbed over it with coconuts.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
Paul Bettany yelled so much on set he developed laryngitis.
That does not surprise me. Like, he has a very difficult part to yell all of his lines.
All of his lines.
Yeah.
The initial shot in the very beginning, in between the two title cards, is actually footage of an accident involving Heath Ledger's stunt double.
Really?
The lance glanced off target and unseated a stunt double from a horse.
Ooh.
And he fell to the ground unconscious, but was okay afterward.
Ooh, scary.
Technically, the only jousting injury that happened in this movie was when Heath Ledger accidentally knocked out one of the director's front teeth with a broomstick as they were practicing a jousting move.
Oh, God.
And it took months before the director's mouth had healed enough to repair the damage. And so that's technically the only jousting injury during filming.
Wow.
I don't know if you know, but like your front teeth as an adult, like knocking out your front teeth is no joke. I found this out from the last Jackass movie. Aaron McGee.
We do very scientific research here, Emily. I don't know if you know much about our podcast.
I love this. No, this is perfect.
Yeah.
There was a stunt in Jackass 3 where they tied a string to his front tooth and then a string to a Ferrari and had the Ferrari drive.
Jesus Christ.
This is why I don't watch those movies. I can't do it. Like,
it pulled his tooth out,
Of
and so you're
course.
watching it and you're just like, oh, but what you didn't see in the movie, and we found out later when this last movie came out, because he talked about it in interviews, it cracked his skull. And so he had to have like a bunch of serious rehab and stuff to repair his skull and then get a fake tooth. So like your front tooth, no joke. Protect your teeth, I guess. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I weirdly have a lot. I like teeth stuff really freaks me out. I used to when I was a kid, anytime I lost a baby tooth, I would cry because I would always think I'd lost that tooth already and that it was an adult tooth.
Oh.
It's like, which really demonstrates like my anxiety level as a child. But
do you have dreams about losing your teeth?
honestly, I don't. It's like not a
Really?
thing that is really like crept into my,
Interesting.
like in real life, it's a thing that I'm very freaked out by. But wow, that does nothing to help me out with it. That is really fucking scary.
Don't lose your front teeth. Yeah.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah. So Gelderland is actually a real province in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And so when this movie showed in the Netherlands, people laughed every time they said Ulrich's name and didn't understand why other audiences, other places didn't think it was hilarious. So apparently for them, added jokes. Huh. Heath Ledger, at the time, he had done 10 Things I Hate About You about 2 years before.
Yeah.
But hadn't done much else except for The Patriot, which was still kind of in production when they were casting this movie. Because Patriot's 2000, this is 2001.
Yeah, it is.
And so he gets cast based on the director of The Patriot sending dailies from The Patriot to the director of this movie.
Man, 10 Things I Hate About You wasn't enough? I mean, Jesus.
It wasn't enough.
What a star-making performance.
I know.
Yeah.
Him in that movie. Oh.
Yeah.
I love that
To
movie.
die
I
for.
unapologetically
I love that
love
movie.
that movie.
Oh, me too.
That
I
was
love that
also
movie.
one that when we watched it on this, it held up more than we thought it
Yep.
would too.
I remember we talked about that. Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I really believe it.
Yep. So the first introduction that Chaucer does, where he addresses everyone and everyone else here not sitting on a cushion, so basically all the poor people.
Yeah.
It's actually a reference to a Beatles performance in 1963. Now, 1963 is before they come to America, so they're not the famous Beatles that we know. This is early Beatle. And John Lennon introduced their last song by saying, "This is for the people in the cheaper seats, clap your hands, and for the rest of you, just jingle your jewelry," or just rattle your jewelry is what he says. It's pretty fun. Most of the knights and named knights in this movie are real, but they're from a bunch of different times.
Okay.
So like Ulrich von Liechtenstein is a knight and author who's said to have invented the concept of chivalry and courtly love based on some of his writings.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And he allegedly boasted that he would give a golden ring to any knight who could break a lance on his armor, and gave away 271 golden rings, but still remained undefeated.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good for him.
But all of the other, like Roger Mortimer, Sir Thomas Colville, they are all like noblemen from give or take a century on either side of when this movie is supposed to be taking place. The expression sixes and sevens. So when they invite Chaucer back to play sixes and sevens, it's actually a reference to Chaucer's book Troilus and Cressida in 1374. But sixes and sevens basically means to carelessly risk one's entire fortune. It's derived from a game of dice, but he is the originator in print of that phrase. Now, the crunching sound heard whenever a lance shatters in the film is actually the sound of a howitzer being fired.
Really?
And yes.
Okay.
And in order to produce this crunching impact, they slowed the sound down by half. So it's basically a howitzer being fired and then slowed down by half, and that's the sound of a lance hitting armor. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts. Let's talk some box office. So what do you think the production budget for A Knight's Tale was in 2001?
I know that they filmed almost all of this in Prague, and I want to say parts in Romania as well, for budgetary concerns.
Sure.
So I'm going to say that this is around $6 million.
Okay. Emily, do you want to take a guess?
I was going to say like 15 million.
You'd be closer. It was actually $41 million.
Holy shit.
This is an expensive movie, and this was also 21 years ago. So if you adjust that for inflation,
That
it's
is expensive.
almost $67 million if it was today dollars, right?
Worth it.
Yeah, agree. But it was, 21 years ago, so it was $41 million at the time. It came out on May 11th. It was number 2 in the box office. It was beat by, I think, one of the dreamiest movies ever, The Mummy Returns. And then, of course, number 2 was A Knight's Tale. Number 3 was Bridget Jones' Diary. Number 4 was Along Came a Spider. And number 5 was Driven. But what do you think A Knight's Tale made in its opening weekend?
Opening weekend, I'm going to say it, because I feel like this was a sleeper hit. So I'm going to say 18.
Okay. Do you want to venture a guess, Emily?
Of course. Let's say opening weekend, this made, I'm going to stick to 15 million.
Actually, very, very close. It was $16.5 million in its opening weekend. So it did really well. Obviously not very close to the budget, but it did very well. It was also in the theaters for 12 weeks total, so 11 more weeks. But what do you think it ended up making domestically at the box office in its 12-week run?
How much did it make in the first weekend again?
It made $16 million.
Okay.
Yeah, 16.5.
So I'm going to say domestically, 12-week run, it makes basically its budget's back. I'm going to say it makes 45.
Okay, what do you think, Emily?
I think it's going to make around 40 mil.
Okay, so it actually made $56 million domestically, and then it made $44 million internationally for a total of $100.6 million. And if you adjust that for inflation, that's roughly $164.3 million today. But just barely a $100 million movie in 2001 when this came out.
Nice.
And that's your box office. So do you guys still think they're together?
No, I think he died from his injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He dies a month after this movie from, I don't know, infection.
And she goes on to marry Adamar anyway.
Yeah. I think she doesn't have much of a say in who she's going to marry, sort of regardless.
Yeah, because technically at this time, and I'm not saying this is right, but she is her father's property.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, he's not going to, even though William was knighted, he doesn't have money
lands or an income or whatever.
So I'm going to still think this is a ill-fated romance.
Yeah. Also, she's terrible. He's better off being dead, I think.
Oh, boy.
Dead from his injuries than marrying a peacock, horrible woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's debatable.
So, I mean,
you might not rather be dead.
I would definitely rather marry Shannyn Sossamon or whatever her name is than be
die?
dead. But yeah, like it is what it is.
But he's better off with his good friends.
Yes.
Those are some solid
Absolutely.
friendships. I love to see it.
Yes.
So, Paige, do you want to do Mikey's movie or do you want to do your own pick next week?
Well, see, here's the thing. So Mikey texted me a movie pick, but he's also not here, so chaos reigns.
Yay!
Right?
There we go.
So, Paige, this week I made you watch A Knight's Tale. What are you going to make me watch next week?
I think because Mikey went on vacation, is it time for Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
Fuck yes. I love that movie so much, and it's terrible. Like, if you think this movie's bad to women, there's a song called Bless Her Beautiful Hide comparing a woman to a cow, and I love that movie so much. It's my favorite Russ Tamblyn performance.
I bought the soundtrack not too long ago, and you know what? Beautiful.
This literally is the movie that made me fall in love with Russ Tamblyn. Like, I love him so much. Like, before West Side Story, when he was Gideon, that's when I fell in love with Russ Tamblyn.
And we're going to get away with it because I told Mikey to pick a movie and told him that it would actually air a week after it would so that he doesn't quite catch on because I knew he wouldn't check the calendar.
Well, that's Mikey for you. It's available on HBO Max, so it is available to rent and to stream.
Super streamable.
Fuck, I love this movie so much. It's terrible. Emily, have you seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
I haven't.
Well, if you like musicals, it's honestly great. But it's also like, it's a very 1950s movie. So like, be prepared for like very terrible sexism.
Horrible sexism, but it's also part of the production of an era called the Freed Unit, where there was like one specific unit in Hollywood that was responsible for most of the musicals, and it's almost entirely employed by gay men. So it's like a weird straight musical that's like gay as hell. Yes.
There's also that scene where it's just like they were bored on set, so it was like all the characters, like the actors, were just like trying to one up each other with props, and they were like, let's just film this, and they incorporated it into a dance number. So the dance number is like 12 minutes long, but like it's actually like just 9 minutes of them like doing these insane like acrobatic tricks, and then they go into the dance. It's wild. It's so
pretty great. Yes.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so your homework for next week is to get so wine drunk that you don't recognize how sexist this movie is, and then watch Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Impossible.
I cannot wait to hear Mikey's reaction to us doing
He's
this.
He's going to be pissed, but this is payback for Blood Diner, and I don't feel sorry.
Blood Diner was great. All hail Sheetar. But Emily, thank you so much for being a guest on Romancing the Pod. We appreciate you jumping on literally last minute, and so sorry to like have to bug you like literally 18 hours before we recorded to watch this movie.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for getting me to watch this movie. Yeah. I'm truly thrilled.
I'm so shocked you hadn't seen it, and your boyfriend hadn't seen it.
To be completely honest.
I'm very glad. Well, do you mind if I ask what your boyfriend thought of the movie?
Yeah.
He loved it.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Yes,
awesome.
We had a great time. We had a great time. I'm going to listen to the soundtrack right after we wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to an unauthorized Bridgerton musical, but you can do whatever
Adding that to the
want.
queue.
Yeah.
Adding that to the queue.
Yep.
So, Emily-
good old Barlow and Bear.
So, Emily, if people want to hear more from you, where can they do that?
They can check out Too Scary Didn't Watch podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and where we do a very similar thing. We recap horror movies, very, very similar to your other podcast, The Horror Virgin. I am typically too scared to watch scary movies, and so is my friend Henley. Our dear friend Sammy tells us what happens in all the scary movies that we're curious to hear about, and sometimes we have some fun guests come on and.
Yeah, I was a guest on the Night of the Creeps episode. That it was, honestly, I think it turned out great.
It turned out great.
Night of the Creeps is such a fun movie.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah, it's I think I've learned from doing it is exposure therapy truly works. I don't have a great time watching scary movies, but I can hear about scary movies now, and I'm sort of like, okay, like I can put my brain in that mode of just like, this is going to be upsetting, and you're just going to take it in, and here we go. Yeah. But Night of the Creeps was not upsetting. It was actually fun. Really quite fun.
Yeah.
We forced Todd to actually watch stuff, and so now it's like getting harder and harder to scare him.
That's tough. It's hard. It's still, even though I've heard about movies for almost 3 years now, it's still watching them as its own experience.
Yeah, I sort of hate it.
I sort of hate it too. Every time I have to do it for the podcast, it's sort of like exercising to me, where it's like, I like to have done it. I don't like to do it.
Yeah, you like to have checked it off the list, but you don't want to actually do it.
I'm always very proud of myself. Like, well, I watched that, but I didn't enjoy doing it.
Yeah, same. I feel exactly the same.
Opposite of watching A Knight's Tale, which I very much enjoyed.
Right.
There you go. That's why we have this show, so we can watch things that Todd actually enjoys.
That actually
it's very kind.
That actually was sort of the impetus of this show, was like,
I love it.
Let's talk about movies that we actually do enjoy. Although Paige doesn't like rom-coms as much as I and Mikey do, but
I'm very critical of the relationships within them.
Yeah.
As one should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you again so much for being a guest. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is a blast.
Well, good. So, guys, if you like this power throuple that we have here on this podcast, make sure to check out our other podcast, The Horror Virgin. And that is the only other podcast that Mikey and I are on. But Paige gets around, and she is on 2 other podcasts, Black Card Rehab and Cult Podcast. So, guys, definitely check out those because they're amazing. If you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show.
Yes.
On Instagram, and we are at something else on Twitter, who I just have never taken the time to learn
It's just Romancing Pod Show, because they have a character limit, and it's show, SHO, like Showtime.
So guys, check that out as well. And if you want to follow us all individually, Paige is at Rampage Wesley everywhere, including TikTok, except for Twitter, where she is at Paige Wesley. Mikey is at MRandolph24, and I am at Todd J. Awesome everywhere. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And okay, that's right, Mikey's not here.
Yeah.
Throwing off fucking everything.
You're
That's
the worst,
why you have
Mikey.
to watch 7 Brides for 7 Brothers next week.
He doesn't
you
know
bastard.
it yet, though.
He doesn't know it yet.
I'm so happy about that.
It'll be our secret. Shh.
Bye! Nike swoosh nerds. All right.